How's it going, mamas? I'm so glad that you've joined us today, and I'm so excited to be here with my friend Linette, and she has an amazing motherhood story to share with you guys today. But first, I wanted her to tell you guys a little bit about herself. So go ahead, Linette, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah. Thanks, Whitney. I'm excited to be here today. My name is Linette Nelson, and I've been a part of Substance Church for about 5 years with my family, my husband, and I have 2 boys, 6.5 and almost 3. And we live in Mountains View, and I've been a part of Substance Mom since pretty much we started. That's how I came to Substance, actually.
And you're such a blessing to have with us, so I'm so glad that you're here today.
Thank you.
So you have a really interesting story, or a really dynamic, I guess I would say, story about how your motherhood journey shifted after your second son. Can you share with us a little bit more about what that looked like?
Yeah, so when I had my second son, my older one was almost 4 years old, and it went well, I'd say, for the first week. But as a new mom, you're not sleeping. Your hormones are shifting, and I experienced a great deal of that. My baby was not a great sleeper, but my oldest son really struggled to adapt to being an older sibling. He had a lot of regression in just his behaviors, potty training, all the things. And while I was already struggling with just kind of the anxiousness of how do I figure out this 2-kid thing now that I have 2 kids and just the dynamics of that, I was also struggling with how do I parent my almost 4-year-old now who is just kind of falling apart. And to put it shortly, it just kind of was like this storm that kind of came together that it was too much for me. And I experienced, after a few weeks, really about a month or 2 into postpartum, just an incredible low valley of anxiety and depression that was something I'd never experienced before. It was very intense.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going into this battle with anxiety and depression that you haven't had in the past.
Mm-hmm.
How did you navigate that? How did you figure out that something was wrong and that something had to change? What did that look like for you?
Yeah. So I experienced a lot of just anxiety to the point where I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to get out of bed. Also just kind of like I would experience this doom and gloom feeling in the evenings where I would literally want to throw up. And to put it shortly, like I really felt like I was crawling out of my skin. Almost like, when you're an introvert and you're kind of done with people and you just want to retreat. I felt like that, but I wanted to get away from myself.
Sure.
And I couldn't. And it kind of came to this stopping point of one day we just, I called my mom and I said, I need your help today. I just can't do it. And she came, and my older son had this potty accident, and it felt like it was on purpose. And I just kind of just crumbled, and I just broke down, and I had these horrible thoughts and feelings of just like, I just want to get rid of him. And, looking back at that now, obviously I've had to deal with that. But in the moment, my mom was like, we need to get you help. You have anxiety and depression, postpartum, and we need to get you help. Right. And also, I want to say at the time I was with I was still going to my small group, my mom's group.
Yeah.
And the Holy Spirit would get me out of bed every morning to go there.
Great.
He would just be like, you need to go. Even though every part of me was like, I just don't want to, right? And I would go, and I would just feel like my cup was just filled.
That's so amazing.
Every time. Yeah, and I just felt like the mamas were really there. God was working through them because they would, give me suggestions and text me throughout the week and kind of follow up with me. How are you doing? That sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I was able to get the help that I needed. And I was able to call my OB who I worked with to deliver my second son. And they had like a short-term therapist that would work with mamas who would have postpartum. And so I worked with her, and then I was also able to get onto some medication as well.
Sure.
And after, I would say, a month or two of doing that, I really experienced some breakthrough. But I also, had my time with the Lord, too, that
Right.
really shaped a lot of healing for me.
What an amazing story. I love how you pressed into the awkward and you pressed into the community and that vulnerability, and really being able to share something that really feels like it's out of your control is what brought the breakthrough and what brought the change. And for you mamas too, when you lean into that period and when you lean into that vulnerable period, that's when breakthrough can change, because when you're in isolation, it feels overwhelming and you can't control it.
Yeah.
And then you just feel like you're drowning all of the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I love just how that community changed you.
Yeah, it did. For sure.
So you mentioned your time with the Lord, and how the Holy Spirit got you out of bed, which I love. I love that. I love that he was so sweet to you in that way. What did that look like? How did it shift when you were in that season and when you're in those moments?
Yeah. So I was struggling a lot with just how do I parent this 4-year-old who is just really struggling. And I found that, like, I would have to stay connected to the vine, right? Like, I would have to do some deep Bible dives. I would have to spend a lot of time in prayer with the Lord, and just really walking with him. And I found that when I was doing a good job of that, with my eyes stayed on him, right, I found more peace. I found more connectedness to the vine, more fruitfulness. I was more patient with my son. I was able to, like, deal with the tantrums and the extreme behaviors, right? Versus on days when I really felt like I was not connected and I was, maybe too busy to spend time in the Word or to pray. I felt like I was really struggling, and those were some really low days for me. And I, would say things, do things that I, like, really, look back on and have a lot of guilt and shame, which I've worked through, and Jesus has forgiven me and really redeemed me through his grace.
It's so beautiful. I've experienced that too. I've kind of watched through a health journey of my own, which we can go through at a different time. But even for me, sometimes I didn't have the strength to do my Bible reading, to do those deep dives.
Yeah.
And even just spending 2 minutes with a worship song and being like, God, I don't have brain power to give you right now, but I have 2 minutes to worship you. And it changed the whole trajectory of my day. Like, it gave me the strength to, like, I can get through this minute. Okay, I can do 5 minutes. Yeah. Okay, I can do 10 minutes. And when I didn't do that, I just felt like I was behind and like I was floundering the whole day.
Yeah.
So it's really cool how that happens when we give God the time. He shows up and he magnifies what we do have.
Yeah.
We give him our loaves and fishes and he feeds our 5,000, right?
Right.
The kids feel like 5,000 sometimes.
For sure.
All right. So as we're wrapping up here, what are you wanting to share with these mamas? What are your takeaways that, if they don't hear anything else, this is the most important tidbit that you wanted to share with them?
Yeah, for sure. Well, there was a couple verses that really carried me through that time. And one is, the Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves those crushed in spirit. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers them from all of them, right? And that's Psalm 34:18 through 19. And then Isaiah 26:3, you keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you. Mm-hmm. And if you're walking through any anxiety or depression, whether it's postpartum or not, I would just recommend, like, if you have that community, just don't worry about being vulnerable, because God will take care of you. And he's going to send the people that you need in your life, and he's going to work through those people. Also, just, like, really truly just leaning into him, spending that extra time in the Word, spending that extra time praying, and I think you will just truly see a change. But also don't be afraid to seek help. Like, it took me a little bit before I was able to really reach out and say, okay, like, I didn't want to take medication, but I felt like it's either this or I don't even want to think about the alternative. So sometimes you just have to do what you have to do. So if it's you or your friend that you know who's walking through something like this, I would just say, think about those things and
Right.
don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you shared that verse. Isaiah 26:3 is actually my same verse. And so when we were talking, I was like, oh, I know that one because I've said it to myself so many times.
Yeah.
So if you're watching this, mamas, I want you to know that there is hope and there is help. And we've actually compiled a list of resources of therapists that we trust and other things like that. So reach out to your gather group leader. They have their resources, and we would love to connect you because we don't have to do this alone, and none of us have to do this in isolation. So reach out, and if you're watching online, you're not in a gather group, you can email us at moms@substancechurch.com, and we'd be more than happy to share those resources with you because it's important, and we don't want to leave you without hope because there is hope and there is help,
Yes.
and the Holy Spirit has more for you. So reach out for that. Thank you so much for sharing, Linette.
Yes, of course.
Your story's so powerful, and I know that it's really going to help people out there because it's
That's
good.
the hope.
It's good to
Yes.
normalize that it's okay to not be okay.
It is.
Because we've all been there.
It is.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. So go into your groups, discuss. We love you so much.